Okay, so our next speaker is Remo, who's an MSc student at the Alef Trust Institute. He'll be speaking about building an inner empire in the creator's economy. So Remo, please take it away.
So happy to be here. Wow, what a space. Thank you for getting it started, Ruth. I'm glad I wasn't the first one. I'm quite nervous really because I'm just not just sharing my ideas, but some of my heart as well. So anyways, I have two title slides, why not? I would consider myself a solophile. It's not the word, but it is now, because I want to see, hear, touch, even smell and taste more soul in this world and life. And this is the essence of my presentation today. So here's the title. Since I have only 20 minutes today, I can only introduce you to a collage of my ideas and a snapshot of my thinking. I'll try to share pieces of my process with my MSc thesis, but my presentation will be more of a manifesto rather than a research poster. I'll share some intuitions and some visions from my heart, and I'll be happy to discuss more details and answer your questions in the Q&A, as well as converse after the symposium in any format if you find resonance with me. So in terms of my research, since it's only about half complete as of now, I will just give a brief overview, but you can ask for findings and particular stories or examples in the Q&A again. Also hope you enjoy these calming textures and grains and slides I put together. This is kind of how I perceive the subtle world. So here's some of my makeup, some questions and topics that have been pulling me, what motivates, what moves us as humans, what's the purpose of life and existence, to topics of inspiration and creativity, beauty, and of course, states of consciousness, both theoretically and experientially. Some schools and projects. I was participating in a bioenergetics school, officially called Transpersonal Psychology Institute, a Russian school, which was pretty, I would say, intense training, a Spetsnaz training of sorts, but they basically studied life processes through perception and through consciousness itself, through experience. At the same time, I was doing my psycho and hypnotherapy school, kind of in the lens of transpersonal psychology, in which I learned how to work with people, with psyche, emotions, and also very hands-on approach of who am I or what do I consist of. Other than that, I've been doing radio for almost 15 years now and curating different spaces and events and experiences, which have kind of informed these ideas that I'm going to present to you. Right now, I'm finishing my MSc in Consciousness Studies and Transpersonal Psychology in Alef Trust Institute. My thesis project is Soul Cartography, From Maps to Compass, an autoethnographic intuitive inquiry into what constitutes a soul and how it manifests in a personal embodiment. And since it's a big topic, but since in academia you got to have something concrete as well, then the research question is simply, what do individuals, including myself, consider to be the key elements that constitute their soul? And how do these, elements manifest in our lives and identity? This process for me started with an image, the image of inner empire. It's something that's been pulling me like an attractor. I find that there is a desire in our soul to create. And I think that in one word is what we are doing, learning and practicing here, how to create something beautiful and something lasting And in a world that's changing and evolving technologically so rapidly, I feel these to be the frontier, soul and creativity. And that concept, the inner empire, stems from one of my first visions almost a decade ago now, where I started hearing the earth's heartbeat. And suddenly I remembered that I've come here for a reason, and I haven't come alone, that I've come to make a home here, because there isn't one right now, a place where we, these souls, could feel at home, where things would make sense to us, where we would want to play, create, and collaborate, where there would be games we'd like to play, the opposite of zero-sum, lose-lose, and win-lose games. And over the years, I made a series of events in that vision, intuition, and feeling. One series we called Home Vibe, for example. That's how I found my partner, who is my home now. And through those events, I realized that home is a place where you can open up, where you can play, experiment, have fun with your creativity, intelligence, and personality, where you can be okay with not knowing, and if you allow me to cringe a bit, be yourself. But even more, grow into yourself, evoke, embody, and root your true self and soul into this reality. So whichever activities, places, attitudes, things, people, colors, smells, tastes, sounds, and music invoke that feeling of inner freedom, the feeling of comfort, safety, being accepted, a fitness in the sense of fitting here, that this environment and society and planet fits on you, that you can drop and play with your masks, roles, constraints, and filters, which give the feeling of resonance, inspiration, and motivation even. These are pieces of home for me. So in my seeking and visions, I've come to look for something that would prolong, nurture, and grow that feeling of home, of fitness, of belonging, in a planetary and cosmological sense even. In this life, we could also call it incarnation, adaptation. So what could those things be? Before I go into that, I want to give you a feeling of the process I initiated for my MSc thesis. I started to meditate through creative practice and try to visualize and sense what is this inner empire. So where would this inner empire be? Before something is built, there is usually something there or somewhere to build it. And that's how I had the vision of a soulscape. So here's a slideshow within a slideshow, because I'm meta like that. A mix of hypnosis experiences, dreams, as well as a feeling of expansion and spaciousness, intimacy, something energetic, responsive, and alive, unconstrained yet tangible, dreamy yet defined, ethereal yet touchable. These are just some AI depictions that I liked, which have an effect on me. This is my favorite one. Just observe if any sensations emerge for you too. This for me feels like a soulscape of an older person. So, and this last one is just an example of what an inner empire could be. Doesn't feel cozy though, but just an example. So how do we go from soulscape to this inner empire? Not only do we have to construct these structures and functions we want, we often also have to remove certain weeds, till the land, and find stable ground, speaking metaphorically. And how do we know we have constructed something? This is a reference to spiritual development and discernment and shadow work, for example, which we will go into later. I think of it as a space where you can imagine, dream, be inspired, and create not only projects, but yourself as well. Replace and develop parts and qualities of you. A place where you can invite guests to learn from and to collaborate with. A place where you can invite different spirits, of history, of great minds, of places, of gods, and other souls as well. So what would such a place have to be like? Which feelings would it have to invoke to be inviting to lovely spirits and souls alike? And this is where we can start to talk about spirituality and the transpersonal. I'm not going to give you an exact answer, but here are some things that I have found of substance and service in my life. A faith, and importantly, not a religion, trust, set of core values and principles, a personal philosophy, a belief, and this is what I want to offer to the world. I believe that all of these can be built through experience. A state of being, which can be cultivated. A way or ways of relating. You can look into game theory for that if you're into science. Win-win-win attitude, integrity and authenticity, or more importantly, relationships and practices that promote and drive those. And of course, which I will be talking about in the second part of this presentation, entrepreneurial principles, how to serve, how to create and share value. So in a phrase, mindset, heart set, and character. And ways of relating. Having been on this course, having done this for over 10 years, I think this is as simple as it gets. I think spirituality equals or means or gets you to more connection, better integration, and more meaning, a more meaningful life. And I think the metric of our spiritual development is first discernment, which I won't have the time to go into. You can read books about it, and how we live. I seriously believe this. I think spirituality for spirituality's sake, I don't think much of that, let's say that. I think it is reflected in how we live and how we relate. So this is one of the more useful models I found in my MSc program from Michael Daniels. I think this also depicts pretty well what is spiritual development in a rational sense. It was developed from Ken Wilber's two-dimensional depiction. This is a three-dimensional depiction. In a sense, we can work on all of these vectors. But before that, I want to just give you my vision of ego. I think that we have evolved ego as a form or a container of consciousness and identity for survival in dense populations. I'm quite unsure we even thought this way a couple of generations back, our I generation, so to speak. And I think that really it is a technical problem almost. Of course, a cultural thing, religious even, our hero story, mythology, and actual religions have ingrained this in us for a few millennia. But from the technical side, I think that we just can't compute living in an environment where we meet tens, hundreds, if not thousands of people every day, who most of will never meet again. Do you understand how nonsensical this would be for a hunter-gatherer? The evolutionary platform we are built upon. So we have developed adaptations, symbols of class, titles, money, clothes and fashion, and so on. Facebook, Instagram. We have made each other into snapshots, thumbnails, galleries of who we really are. Now, in contrast, try to imagine a hunter-gatherer tribe and their relationships with each other. You were born in the same tribe, you died in the same tribe with the same people. I think this quality of relationships, this is the feeling of home within our genes that we yearn for, the nature romanticism that's living in all of us, as well as the relationships with nature and cosmos and life and self. So how do we get out of this? This has been my guiding question in a sense too. So let's get back to spirituality. In a sense, in short, the more trust and discernment we have, the less ego we will need. I just had a conversation with one of the NPNs saying that, these king archetypes, they are products of our ego, but at the same time, they are cradles for a deeper being in this world. And another way to look at this picture is the descending vector could be the roots of depth and empathy, looking into your genes, into your history, of what you are made out of, all the historical intergenerational trauma that we inherit when we are born and raised. And the ascending vector, this is spirituality, as we think of it mostly, getting closer to God, getting closer to truth, the simple truth. All is one, all is love. But again, they are meaningless unless we share them. And this is where the extending vector comes in. You can think of these as fruits, of joy, of service. And I can share the other table later. A bit about my thesis, because I want to talk about creators economy as well. This, again, is just a snapshot. I won't be able to go into it. This is just to show you that I'm actually working in academia. So I chose autoethnography and intuitive inquiry for my approach to go into 2 data sets with different lenses and to have a detail versus big picture or individual versus culture comparison, a subject and the context, so to speak. What you're seeing now is just the themes that have been extracted out of my 5 qualitative interviews with different, let's say, views and perspectives on the soul. And I specifically chose non-religious people to look into. And the first data set is my own diaries, my own life experience. I thought I had less, but in the end, I found 10 diaries that I had to go through. But it was a really, really integrative experience. But my aim really is to construct a journey in which to apply many different forms of cognition: reflective, contemplative, creative, artistic, meditative, spiritual practices, and embodied writing, for example, and phenomenological interviewing. I have found that my thinking usually isn't the best, and I really mean metacognition here. When I'm sitting in a chair and putting my thoughts in a row, it's usually better when I'm engaged in an activity, whether it's exercise, spiritual practice, meditation, some forms of work or creative practice, painting, sewing, or woodworking, doesn't really matter. Some people call it flow, which I also find a spectrum of sorts. Anything that promotes and focuses and quiets the mind. So in terms of my findings, really won't have time to share them, but if you are interested, you can ask me in the Q&A, and the same for my first data set, my personal data. Okay, seems I have 2 minutes left at best, so let's see if I can talk about creators economy as well. Here's another slideshow within a slideshow. In short, if you are, into or familiar with social media, the forms of connecting with each other through technology right now, you already have a sense of what it is, what people are doing on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, how people are sharing value and and making living out of it, how people are really serving and living their purpose. So these slides are just from Dan Covey, one person I'm following, showing that, you know, our usual ways of going through life are really changing. I will just give you a snapshot. It's really simple. Find people who share the same goals as you, the same interests. You make your community, you provide value to that community, whether it's a service or a thing or some course, and you get paid for that. Here are some pointers too. All right. The equation is really simple. Impact is leverage times projects. Leverage is reach times expertise. Expertise is your interest times application. Reach is the quality of your offer times marketing, and marketing is brand compounded with content and ads. And the impact is meaning and opportunity. This is kind of a final slide for me. So you could ask kind of what is the purpose of it all, which I've been doing for a while. And my favorite one is, you know, we're all baby gods. And I'm starting to perceive people and souls more and more this way. We are learning to create here, and in a very responsible manner, you know, in the sense that both individual and collectively, we have to eat the soup that we make. You know, that is the spiritual evolution. And what I mean by God is chill is that, you know, he or the collective cosmic intelligence, you can call it as well, behind it all, he's chill, or she. You know, we can fail this project. We can blow the planet up. It's a big pity. I wouldn't want to have that, you know, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this work. But what I mean by that is he has a plan for us. And if we mess it up, you know, it's just going to take another few billions of years to get back to this point and perhaps develop further the next time. So really have no other statements. If you want to connect, here's my Instagram, and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed.
Great, Remo. Thank you so much.